Hello and welcome to this introduction to Python programming course for beginners. So in this course, I want to introduce you to Python programming and how to build web application using Python framework. So to achieve that, we are going to start by, you know, Python basics, and then we are going to build on top of that until we start building application to Python. This course is going to be about different parts, and we are going to each part of this Python course is going to be about a particular topic. And so my belief is that at the end of this particular course, you should be able to call yourself a confident Python developer and you start to build projects on your own. So, but first of all, we are going to start from the beginning, and then we are going to build on top of that to actually becoming proper web developers with Python. So why do I even decide to use Python for this course? The reason is because Python has become one of the most popular programming language for building web application. But not just that, Python is designed to handle a whole lot of stuff like automation. People use Python every day for doing automation tasks and all the rest. They also use Python for data science. Also, Python is also used for things like cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. So even after taking this course, if you don't want to continue to learn about web development in Python, you can still use the skills that you learn in this course to actually become maybe an AI engineer, cybersecurity analyst, or a data science analyst. So Python is a very big and powerful course that you can use to perform a lot of other tasks. So that is the reason why I decided, wow, let's just use Python for this course because it will give you opportunities to do a whole lot of other stuff as in your career or as a programmer. So what do you even need to what do you need to actually start on this course? You just need very few things. The first thing you need is the Python programming language. So just go to um, python.org, go to the official Python website, which is python.org, and download a copy of Python into your program. So when you open the website, sorry, I think I need to connect my network. Okay. So just go to Python. Let's try this again. I think I need to connect my network again. My network is missing. Okay. Okay, so my network is now connected. So simply go to python.org, which is the official website for Python programming language. And then you should see a download button for downloading Python um, into your programming language. I mean into your laptop. So it could be different for different operating systems. So if you're using OS, like if you're using Mac OS or you're using Windows, so it could be different. I'm actually using Windows for this course. So I'll simply come to download Python and click on download Python here. And then I'll see this download button and I can download the latest Python version for our programming. So it will download into my machine, but I don't want to do that because already I have Python installed. But I think all you have to do is simply when this finishes downloading, you simply run it as installation and install it into your system. It will download an executable file for you. So just download it into your system and then run it like the way you install regular application, and that will be installed for you. So after that, the next application you need to install is VS Code. So VS Code, if you don't know what it is simply a text editor for writing programs. So again, just like you install Python, you also have to come here and then you see download for Windows. If you're actually visiting this website for from Mac OS, that will be different. And so you can see for Mac OS here, and then you also use that for. But if you're using Windows, you simply click on this, and it will also download the executable format or executable file for you to actually install in your machine. All you have to do is to also run it, just like it is. You see, the file is downloading, but I actually don't want it because I also have it. And then once that is done, you also run it as an administrator and install it into your system. Okay, so once you've installed these two applications or these two programs into your system, you're very good to go. Now what you need to do next is to test if Python has successfully been installed in your system. To do that, you can open your terminal. On Windows. The easiest way to open terminal or the fastest way to open terminal is just to type cmd and to open your command prompt. So once your command prompt is open, you can now say python dash dash version. So this command is actually used to check if Python or which Python version is installed in our system. And then once we run that, you can see that we have Python 3.11.5. This will be different for you depending on the version of Python you install or depending on when you're watching this tutorial. But you have to see this particular stuff to know that Python is installed in your system. All right, you have to see this. Once you see this, just know that Python is installed in your system, and you can now do a lot of stuff with Python, which you will see subsequently. All right, so once you've done that, you've successfully installed everything you need to actually um, to actually start programming with Python. The next thing you need to do after that is to actually go to your system, go to your desktop or anywhere in your program, and then create a file. For me, I'm going to create a file, a new file, and I'm going to call, or a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder my first website. My first website. So this is going to contain all the um, code that I'm going to run for this particular website. So I'm going to open this folder after that, and then I'm going to create a Python file. Now I'm going to create a Python file, and I'm going to call this file python.py. Now, the way you tell a system that you're actually creating a Python file is to actually end it with .py. So that .py means Python, and it tells your system that this is a Python file. As you can see, the moment we change the Python the file name to the file extension rather .py, the icon here actually changes and shows a Python icon. So that is the way you create a Python file. So the next thing we are going to do right now is very simple. We are going to open this file from our text editor, the VS Code text editor that we just installed some few moments ago. So we are going to right click on this. We are going to right click and open with VS Code. If you don't see this option available on your system, if you don't see this option available on your system, you can simply look for where the application is installed. For me, the application is somewhere here. And if I go down, I'm going to see VS Code 222. So if I scroll down, rather Visual Studio Code rather. So if I scroll down, I'm going to see Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to open it. So once it opens up on my system, I can now open the file from there. So currently there is other project I was working on, but I don't want to do that. So all I have to do now is to come to this file here, click on file, and then come to open folder, and then navigate to where that folder I created is located. I think for me it's located on my desktop. So I'm going to scroll down there. I'm going to look for it. I think it was my first website, right? And once I click that, I can access select folder. Okay, so I've selected some folder, and that is going to open successfully for me. As you can see, the file we created is here. So we actually created um, some file in this particular place. Now, before we even talk about other stuff that has to do with Python, let's just see how Python actually works. So don't worry what this is. I'm just going to create first number. I'm going to create two properties. This is actually called variable in programming, but I'm just going to create. If you don't know what this is, don't worry yourself. I'm going to explain them subsequently. So I'm going to create first number, and then I'm going to say first number equals to 2, and second number equals to 3. Then I'm going to say sum or results equals to first number plus second number. And I'm going to save this particular file. Then to do that, just do Ctrl S, and that is going to save that for us. And then they say second number is not defined here. Why is it so? It's because we use capital letter here. We are going to talk about all of this. So small letter is what I'm going to use now. Then I'm going to Ctrl S. I'm going to Ctrl S, and the error disappear. So the next thing I want to do now is for you to go to this tree icon, or you can see your own. You might actually have a terminal icon there. So I'm just going to go to terminal, click on terminal, new terminal, and it's going to open up a terminal for us. at the bottom of our project here. So once that terminal is open, let me make this a little bigger. So once that terminal is actually open, I'm going to run this particular Python file that we created. So I'm going to say python .py. So one last thing I want to put in our code is to print out the solution. To do that, I'm going to say print results. I'm going to say print results, and then Control S. So I can now come here and say python.py.com. So it's going to return 5. So what I've simply done here is that I've created a file called python.py, and inside that file I've created two numbers. I say 2 and 3. Then I've created another property or another variable called result, which is the sum of 1 and 2, first number and second number. Then I've printed out this guy. We are going to talk about all of this. So I just wanted to show you how Python runs. Python is something called an interpreted programming language. So an interpreted programming language is a programming language that actually runs directly on your machine without needing a third party to interpret what, or without needing a third party to compile what you've actually written in your code. Alright, so Python is actually an interpreted programming language, and it can be run directly in your machine. Alright, so we've actually successfully run our first Python project. In the next couple of videos, in the next video, I'm going to show you how to actually create your own variables and what these variables actually mean in programming. So see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to this next tutorial. So in this tutorial we are going to cover Python syntax. So what is syntax itself? If you go to your browser, you can actually check what is a syntax and see what that means. So if you go here and say what is syntax, you see the arrangement of words or phrase to create well-informed sentences in a language. Okay, so when it comes to programming, syntax is simply how a program is written. Like, when you write, the way you write English is different from the way you write Chinese. It's also different from the way you write Arabic. So in programming language, syntax is actually the way a particular program is written. So when we talk about syntax in program, or when we talk about Python syntax, we are trying to talk about how Python is actually written, so that it makes it completely different from the way other programming language is written. So in this tutorial, we are going to cover the entirety of Python syntax, basic Python syntax, and how it is written, and how we can actually write Python to make sure that our system understands that this is Python. Sorry about that. So the first thing to actually make sure that the system understand what is that you are trying to run a Python program is to make sure that your files are actually named with the .py extension. So if you come here, we can create a new file and we can call this index.py. So once we actually put the .py, the icon here actually changes to Python icons too, because the system now understand that we are working with Python file, right? Sorry about that. So the first thing we are going to look at now is Python variables, or variables generally in program. So what is variables? To understand what variable is, let me show you a little illustration. So every program stores something. Every programming language or every system store information in a particular location in the system. So if you have, let's say like your laptop stores different information in the system in different location or in the memory location. So your system has different hundreds of memory locations in its memory, and each of these locations is used to store a particular information. For instance, there is a location to store your password, there's a location to store your username, and all the rest of everything. If you also go to if you also open a folder in your system, you also see that we have something like a desktop, a download folder where all downloads or where everything you download is being stored. We also have documents, we also have user pictures, and so on and so forth. So your system needs to store all of this information, and the way it stores that is that it creates a particular location or in the system memory and adds that information to it. Now, the way you're able to locate this information that it stores is that you have to go to the name of a particular folder for you to locate that information. For instance, if you download something from our Chrome, if we want to locate that stuff, we can simply go to our download and we'll see where that information is actually being stored. By just going to the download, you understand that this is where everything that is downloaded is being stored. So when we talk about variable in programming, we are talking about names that are actually given to memory location where information is being stored on our program or in our system or in our website or in our website memory and so on and so forth. So let's say for instance we want to store age of somebody in our program. So we can simply write age, and then say the age is 24, right? So that anytime somebody call out age now, it's going to print out 24. Let's test that and see. If you print out age now, then we'll come to the terminal. And then we'll run python.py again. You can see that the age will be printed out. Okay, and they say we have an error. Where is this error located? Line 1. So there's an error in our system. We'll have to look where it's located. Okay, there was actually no error. I was mistaken. So we see 24 in this particular place, which is the age that we actually used to save here. So you can see that what we actually did now was to simply print out age. Now age can be used at any point in our system. So if we come here and we print out age again, come here and print out age, and then delete this particular one, delete that particular one, and then we'll run this again, we will see 24 will be printed out again. So our system now understands that anytime that somebody prints or anytime that somebody call age is going to be assigned number 24, right? So variables are actually used in program to store information so that it can be easily accessible. Because if we just write 24 somewhere like this, we will not know where this 24 is being created, and then we will not be able to use that 24 anywhere, or we will not be able to access that 24 when we want to use it in our program. So just know that variables are actually used to actually store information that we will need later to write or to perform a particular operation in our system. Okay, so variables are used to store those kind of information. It could be a name, it could be a message, it could be anything you can think of at all. It could even be a list of something, which we are also going to look at. Okay, so variables in program are actually used to store information. I hope you understand that very well. Now, there are different types of data that can be stored in a variable. There are different types of data that can be stored in a variable, and this can be different for every programming language. But for Python, we have few types of data that we can store in a variable. The first one is an integer, and we've already looked at it. So an integer is a number. So when we say age equals to 24, this is an integer. So it's just a number that does not have any precision. So it's just a number that does not have any precision like. When I'm talking about precision, it doesn't have any decimal place like point something and so on and so forth. So these are called integers. So for instance, our age here is 24. And if you highlight it, you will see that we have a literal 25. Okay, we have literal 25. This to show that this is an integer that we've actually stored in this particular place. The next type of data we can store is a float. So the difference between a float and an integer is that a float accepts decimal places. So for instance, we can create a variable called let's say results. We can create a variable called results, and then we can save it as 92. Let's say 92 or 97.2. Now, this is another type of data that we can store in a string, and this is called a float because it has a decimal place. All right. Okay. So another type of data we can store in Python is the one called string. So str is a short form of string. And what do we use string to store? We use string to store words or group of words. For instance, we can now say greetings. Greeting. I can equate greeting to, let's say, good morning. Good morning. Because it is morning over here. So as you can see, the difference between string and numbers like integers and float is that strings are enclosed in quotation marks. In quotation mark, it can be two double quotation mark or single quotation mark. It doesn't really matter. It can be double quotation mark or single quotation mark. It doesn't really matter. So if you enclose, let's say 24 or 25 in a quotation mark, that becomes a string. So even though we have a number in this place, the system will read this particular stuff as a string. All right. So just know that anything you actually enclose in quotation marks actually becomes a string in program or in Python. All right. Okay, good. So we've talked about int, we've talked about floats, and we've just finished talking about strings. And we are going to use all of these things when we start writing program very well. Okay, so the next type of data type that is stored in, or the next type of data we can store in a variable in Python is a Boolean variable. So Python represents Boolean as bool, short form of Boolean. And what is a Boolean variable? A Boolean is something that can either be true or false. So it can either be true or false. So something like, is today Monday? Today Monday? You can have, this can be true or false. So this is actually false because today is not Monday over here. Today is actually Tuesday. So we can put that as false. And in Python, that is capital letter as false because today is not Monday. But is today Tuesday? Is today Tuesday? If today is actually Tuesday, we can actually say yes, today is Tuesday, and we can set that as true. So we can set this to be true because today is actually Tuesday. So in Python, when we talk about Boolean variables, you're actually talking about those variables that can either be true or they can either be false. It's actually used to create or to check when something is actually going to happen or is not going to happen. So the likelihood of something happening now is true. The likelihood that it's not going to happen is false. In other programs, this can also be represented as 0 and 1. So whatever is actually equated to 0 is actually a false variable. When it's equated to 1, it is a true variable. But in Python, we use true or false to actually equate that, to check if something is true or false. So we've covered int, which is a number without precision, or a decimal place. That is an integer. But whenever a number has decimal place, even if those decimal places like 10 or thereabout, that becomes a float. And then we talked about string. We say string is simply a data type in Python that is enclosed by quotation mark. This quotation mark can either be double or they can either be single. If you enclose a number with quotation mark, that number automatically becomes a string in Python. Again, we also looked at a bool or a boolean. We say a boolean is something that can either be true or false. So when something is true, we say that is a true boolean or true data type or whatever you want to call that. But when it is false, then that particular variable is actually false. And that is just the basic of data types in Python. There are other types, but we are going to look at them when we go little more advanced than we are currently. All right. So the next thing we are going to look at is operators in Python. So operators in Python are actually used to perform some kind of arithmetic operations and so on and so forth in Python. And Python supports most of the basic arithmetic operation that you can think of, including plus, minus, division, multiplication, and remainder. So if we have, now that we've already known what is an integer and a float, so if we come here and say let's say we create two numbers, we create two variables, we say first number, and we equate this to 4, and then we equate second number, and we equate this to second number, and we equate this to 3. So Python enables us to actually perform arithmetic operation and this kind of stuff. So you can now say that, let's say results can now be equals to first number plus second number. First number plus second number. And we also have result 2. Result 2 is equals to first number minus second number. And then result 3 is equals to first number divided by second number. And then results 4, let's say result 4 now, is equals to first number multiplied by second number. And then we can now do finally result 5. Result 5 is equals to first number remainder, or this is also called modulus, and returns the remainder of a division, remainder second number. So let's print out all of these things and see what we get. So the first one we are going to print out is result. Result is addition, so we are going to say results. Let's just print out results. And we can copy this and paste multiple times so that we can get everything we are looking for. This is going to be 2, this is going to be 3, this is going to be 4, this is going to be this is going to be 4, and this is going to be 5. And then I have to change this back because there was a mistake here to 5. And then I can just close that. So if we come down now and then run our program again, we come here and run python.py, and run this. You can see that the first result here is 5 plus 3, which gives us 8. The second one is 5 minus 3, which gives us 2. The third one is 5 divided by 3, which gives us 1.6. And the fourth one is 5 multiplied by 3, that's 5 times 3, which gives us 15. And the last one is 5 modulus 3, which gives us 2. Now what this modulus does is that it divides a number and then return only the remainder. So for instance, 5 divided by 3. 5 divided by 3 is going to give us 1 remainder 2. So 3 is going to go into 5 just once and it's going to remain 2. So this modulus simply returns the remainder of that division. That is what that does. So that is simply all about operation in Python. There are other basic stuff you can do, but that is just the basic of what you need to know. Another thing you need to know is that Python respects something called board mass, something I call board mass. So the level of operation is that if something is in brackets, it has to perform division first, before multiplication, before addition, and before subtraction. So Python respects this rule. Some other people can call that pandas, I don't know, pandas, but I really call that just board mass because I remember it quickly with board mass. So what this means is that you start with okay, this was correct, board mass. So board mass starts with division, multiplication, addition before subtraction. Right? So Python actually respect that. I just wanted you to be aware of that. Okay. So the next kind of stuff we need to look at is comparison operator in Python. So comparison operator is used to check if two things are equal or not. For instance, we can now check if we can come here and delete this. You can come here and delete this. Now the results, first of all, before we do anything, I just wanted you to know that the result of a comparison operator will either be true or false. So something can either be true or it can either be false. So whenever you're using a comparison operator, just know that the result will be a Boolean variable that will be returned. So now, since we have result 2, result 3, and result 4, we can now check, we can now say, print something like, we can now print, say, result 2 equals result 1, or equals result, which is this first one. Result 2 equals result, that is this equals this. Let's check if this is what this is going to give us. So if we come here and run, it's going to be false. So it's going to return false. So we are comparing if result 2, which is this, is equals to this. And of course, it's not equals to, because this result is going to give us, this particular result here is going to give us 8, because that is 5 plus 8. 5 plus 3 is going to give us 8. Why this is going to give us 2? Because 5 minus 3 is going to give us 2. So result 2 is not equals to result, okay, because they are not equal. All right, but if I come here and say result 2 should be equals to 8 now, if I come here and change it and say result 2 should be equals to 8, and then I will now run that same operation again, it becomes true, because now I have changed this particular guy to 8, and the result of this computation is also going to give us 8. So they are equal right now. All right, that is the function of this equals to. Now the next one we have is greater than or equals to. Greater than or equals to check if a number is greater than the next number or is equals to the next number. If it is greater than the next number, it's going to return true. If it is equals to the next number, it's going to return true. But if it is less than, it's going to return false. I don't know if you get that. Let me explain it again. If you have two numbers, say 2 and 3. Now, when you use less than or equals to, you are trying to check if 2 is greater than 3, or at least equals to 3. So if 2 is greater than or equals to 3, it's going to return true. Else, if it is not greater than 3, it's going to return false. So again, if we say result 2 is greater than or equals to result, let's run that and see. And it's going to return false, because the results that we are going to have from this computation is 2, and 2 is not greater than or equals to 8, right? If we change this to say 10, let's change this again and say 10. Now 10 is greater than 8, right? It's not equals to, but it's greater than 8. So if we run this again, we are going to have true, because 10 is greater than 8. All right, okay. The same thing with less or equals to. So if we switch this over, we now have less or equals to. It's just the opposite of the other one. So is 2 now greater than or equals to, I mean less than or equals to 8, the answer will now be true because 2 is less than or equals to 8. So we now have true. All right. So that is comparison, basic comparison operator in Python. These are just used to check if two numbers are equals to or greater than, if they are similar, if they are greater than or similar, if they are less than or similar to the next number or the next condition that we'll be creating in our program. We'll see how all of these things are useful when we start writing actual program in our code, when we start building actual projects. Now, the next thing we are going to look at in Python is logic. There is something called logic operator, and it is in Python we have two very important logic operator, which is or and or. Sorry, what I mean is we have and or. Okay, so something can either be two operation and another operation, or this operation or the next one. It can either be 2 or 3. Okay, it can either be 2 or 3, and or it can either be one particular number. When we look at conditioners, when we look at conditions, which is another important topic in this course. We are going to talk about that particular one there. I want to leave it for then because I will be able to use more example when we are talking about conditions to explain it for you. So before I wrap up this particular tutorial, we've talked about variables, and we say that variables are used in Python to actually store memory, to store variables in a particular, or to give names to memory location in our Python project, so that you can actually be able to cache that. And then we've talked about data type, we've talked about ints, which is just a whole number without a decimal place. And we talk about floats, which is numbers that have decimal place, like 97.2636 and so on and so forth. And we talked about string. We say string is just a data type that is enclosed with quotation mark. It can either be single quotation mark or double quotation mark, but you cannot combine the two of them in a particular data. Then we talked about the boolean, which is either true or false variable in program. And then we've also covered the basics arithmetic operation in Python. Talk about the plus, minus, division, multiplication, and so on and so forth. And then we've also talked about the comparison operator, like equals to, greater than or less than or equals to, and so on and so forth. So the last thing I want to talk about is comments. So in Python, we can actually add comments. Python, we can actually add comments by using the hash. So what are comments? Comments are used to explain a section of our code. They are used to explain or give explanations to a section of our code. So let's say you've written a very big code that you don't really understand. For instance, let me just write this, and you will not really understand what this is right now. So you don't understand what this is, and because I want you to understand what this is, I can now use a comment to actually explain what this is. So I can now add a comment and say this function takes a variable and returns it, right? I can actually now say that right now. So I can actually say this function takes a variables and returns it. That is what comments are used for in Python. So comments are actually used to add explanation to Python. Now you don't really need to add too much comments, you just have to keep it reasonable so that it not become too much. There's another way of actually adding comment. If you want to add a large block of comment, you can use something called string literal, and that is this kind of stuff. So you cannot write comments or whatever I want to write in between this. Write something in between this. So this is used if you want to write a large body of comments, okay, in your code. That is what comments are used for. So again, one thing I want to also explain is that Python syntax, or Python use indentation in its syntax. it uses indentation in its syntax. What I mean is that when you're writing something in Python, indentation really matters. So if I define something like, say, man equals to 23, I cannot come and say something like man, I can, or any other variable, and say variable or var equals to 24. I cannot do that. This space I kept here is not permitted in Python. Okay, Python really say, you can see they've already said unexpected indentation, on indents not expected. So Python does not permit indentation. Everything must always start from where it is supposed to start. We are going to look at that more and more as we continue to go deeper into this course. So that was a simple introduction to Python syntax, Python's arithmetic, operators, and basic data types. In the next video, we are going to go deeper into other types of data types and conditionals in Python. See you in the next one.